you know.
Right.
Yes, welcome to the new Nigerian Democracy Development Podcast. And today I have with me my friend and brother Soul from London. And we both have been working with the Obedient Movement. And I think we are here now to start up a series of podcasts that is going to touch on different aspects of Nigerian development, democracy development programs and initiatives. Among them, Soul have been running different kind of online spaces, forums on Zoom, where with a great network where he engages in different kind of democratic development issues. He's a strong obedient, one of the pioneers who started the movement. For those of you who are not very used to Nigerian politics, the obedient movement is a kind of a Kwashi movement, or what we call it. It is a network of loose supporters of the candidacy of P2B. First, they made jokes about that we are so obedient to him, and we decided to say, okay, we are obedient, and it kind of developed to become a movement that people call themselves the obedient. It went ahead to mobilize and create history in Nigeria. I think and led to what a lot of people will say was the election victory of the candidacy of P2B. But after 1 year now, we feel that it is high time we start to mobilize again, strategize again, and find how this movement can become truly democratic. That is just going to be a part of our discussions. So, but first, I think, ask Soul to also add to the introduction I've made. Soul, how are you doing? How is it over there?
Thank you very much, Elvis. Pleased to be here. I mean, this has been something that we've been hoping to do for a very long time. So there's always the right time. The time now is always the right time. Over here, we're fine. The weather is getting a bit tricky because autumn is approaching. So we're obviously dressed warm. Well, yes, thank you for that splendid introduction. I am indeed call obedient. Try to stay true to the cause, try to keep people inspired by messages of hope, messages of clear visions, and messages of a new Nigeria being possible. That's where I anchor my tent. And I'm glad to have this conversation because it's definitely needed going forward.
Thank you very much. Um, we will also go into the all aspects of the Nigerian democracy. What is it that is arresting the development? Why is it that the elections are not producing a democracy? And what is the state of the obedient movement today? But to introduce this topic, we also have a very staunch obedient brother, a comrade, I will call him, Brother Dele Farotimi, who
Yeah.
also runs a podcast. We will recommend his podcast. The podcast is always on Sundays. He has wonderful lectures that addresses different aspects of the difficulties we are facing today. And I I'm sorry, I'm just waiting because I'm reacting. It looks like we're having something on the mic. I don't know what it is, but it is what it is. Brother Philip Dele Farotimi was asked by Shehu, who on a podcast, to give a
Mhm.
concrete introduction or a summary of what he feels is the trouble with the state of the Nigerian democracy today. So let's listen to what he said, and
Yep.
then we will take the discussion from there.
Kind of
Awesome.
country or a nation that will be for the betterment and for the good of all Nigerians, where do we go from here?
No, we as a people and as a collective would have to resolve to be better than we have been. We would all have to, as a collective, admit to our part, our fault in what has happened to us as a people. This is not something that is not a sectoral guilt. It's a systemic problem. From the pulpits in the churches and mosques, which stinks to the highest heavens, to the groves, the sacred groves of our land. All the places of religiosity in our country have become temples of iniquity. We need to look at ourselves. Me as a person, you as a person, we as a collective, we need to look at ourselves. It's very easy to point fingers at sectors, but the reality is that there is no part of our country that is free of putrefaction. It's a systemic collapse. If there is anything that will change, if anything would ever change, it would have to be that we as a collective with good leadership decide to try a different pathway. Outside of that, what will happen is that by the time Kekere Ekun is leaving, you will be asking me or someone else again if the new acting CJ would be able to change the system. No single person can change Nigeria. It will take the collective resolving that they are tired of where they are before anything would ever change in our country. It has taken the collective to normalize the madness that we have become acculturated to. And it will take a critical mass, if not a majority, if that madness is going to ever change. That's what I've seen about this.
Mr. Dele Farotimi, retired lawyer, a farmer, and a Nigerian. Thank you so much indeed for your time on today's edition of the Micron Podcast. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Yes, my brother Soul, I think this is not anything new to you.
No.
But for some of our viewers, it might be, we feel it is very nice that Comrade Dele was very concise to the point, and he's actually one of the conscience of the nation today. So
Right.
I would like to get your thoughts, what you're thinking about what Dele Farotimi is saying in context to the obedient movement and how best we can tackle the democratic development today in Nigeria and the challenges we have.
Right. I mean, it would be nice if this is a conversation as well. So please feel free to jump in anytime to give it some oomph.
Yeah, it's going to be a dialogue. I'm not gonna let you all alone.
Don't interview me, please. I like conversations. Well, Dele Farotimi is one Nigerian that I think if we had 1,000 of Dele Farotimi, Nigeria would be changed. Just 1,000. Maybe every state has 10 or 20 of him. Nigeria will change forever. So I listen to him religiously every Sunday. I actually call it my Sunday service. And I think the one he actually did on this last Sunday was arguably the best one so far. I mean, I listened. I had to repost it and let people know what this is about. And for lack of a better word, he insinuated in that sermon that it will take all of us. We have to do it as a duty to change the country. We have to have a duty to serve. We have to have a duty to want change. And then the critical one is we have to have a duty to come together, to mobilize ourselves with a common purpose. I mean, that is so powerful that if you break out every word of what that means, you have a duty to come together, mobilize yourself for a common purpose. And essentially, that is what we are hoping that the obedient movement will be. This is what it's supposed to be. And this is the ideology behind it, being able to come together as a duty, a sacred duty to effect a level of change with a common purpose. So when you have people like Dele Farotimi who are obedient as well, it makes you realize that there's something fantastic going on within the psyche of the Nigerian space, where people buy into the ideology of a movement being that inspirational. You have to look at the so-called leaders of the movement. If you look at it from the lenses of the leaders in the movement, the likes of Dele Faritimi, I would say Aisha Yusuf, and a few others who have been quite inspirationally vocal, you have no choice but to align with their proposed vision for a new Nigeria. So I think that's where we find ourselves. And before we go into the crux of democracy, it applies, both ways as well. It applies from a movement point of view, and then it applies from a democratic point of view. Because, like he said, if the people don't come together to work and change the country, then all hope will almost be lost. But where we have a common purpose is where we are starting this engagement from. A democracy, it's a way of governance, a system of governance where power is actually invested in the people, either directly or through an elected representative. But the key thing is that they always share that common purpose. I think that would do for now. Um, you know, um,
But the issue is this,
mm.
in all sincerity, with all respect, um, what we have in Nigeria today, will you call it a democracy?
Yes, Elvis, to be fair, because we have to be true to what is going on. Democracy as a system of governance is fragile. It's very fragile. People don't realize this. We only started using democracy in our own collective history, not even in Africa, globally, only maybe 100, 200 years ago. So it's still going through its tweaks. Different countries, they do different kinds of democracy. You see, China is almost like a centralized kind of democracy under the guise of levels of communism. You have Germany doing their own republican kind of democracy. England, you have England doing leadership kind of democracy. So the thing is still evolving, where it has been imposed on us to now get on with it. So we're finding so many loopholes. And what you have is people exploring those loopholes for their own benefit because the system is still evolving, not necessarily because it's a horrible system of governance, but because it's pretty young. You know, I mean, if you look at this world as we know it, the civilized world, if we look at it from the Egyptian time, so 12,000 years ago, it's been all different kind of governance, different kind of systems, from the religious systems to monarchy systems and all that. So we are now only going to that free will of people's system. So we would have faults. But the key thing is obviously we have to question the people who are imposing democracy in us and question the people who are ruling the democracy. That's where we have a fundamental problem in Nigeria's democracy.
Yeah, but I think the
Mm.
young generation is questioning what is happening. The only thing is that the leaders are doesn't seems to be doesn't they don't act like they are listening. So in a system where you have a feeling that the state has been captured, where leaders do not listen to what you're saying,
Mm.
where they tend to live like as if they are so detached from the reality, where they ask you to tighten your belt. Today, Nigeria is going through a lot of economic collapse, economic hardship that
Mm.
that is unprecedented, something we've not seen for a long time. There in many parts of Nigeria, a liter of fuel is going for 1,300 naira,
Yep.
and you don't even find it. So, in such a state where
Mm.
democracy is no more working, where the leaders, the checks and balances are no longer there, the judiciary has an issue of trust, because one thing is that you will never find a perfect country, you will never find a perfect system, but one thing you have to do for a country to move on is to have the trust of the people, at least a
Mm.
large section of the people. But when all the pillars starts to collapse,
Yeah.
like air, like electricity, like water, healthcare, insecurity, which is the highest. It's like the mainstream medias do not report about them every day again. Today you hear 100 has been killed in Yobe. The other day you hear that millions have been, thousands have been kidnapped in the southeast. So
Yeah.
so it goes on like that. And in this kind of
Mm.
situation, what is the hope that democracy will give Nigeria the kind of government we that will bring us back on track, at least
Yeah.
the basics of government. Nigerians are not acting for a lot of things. Nigerians are not very difficult people. You know,
Yeah.
let it just be that the basic things are working, because the
Mm.
middle class is totally disappeared. Before, the middle class provide for them their own borehole. You
Yeah.
know, as I'm talking with you now, people have called me because of a borehole that have gotten spoiled in the village. So we I provide my own borehole, I provide my own road, I provide my own security, I provide my,
Mm.
but the small thing what government is supposed to do for you, government is even lacking in that. And then
Yeah.
what are they doing? They are buying yet, they are buying a new jet plane, they are sharing money to the lawmakers,
Yeah.
and even the so-called obedient lawmakers, which is the Labour Party. I have not seen them taking any standpoint of value, because to be sincere with you, if I have been one of the obedient lawmakers in the Senate or in the House of Representatives and
Yeah.
haven't seen what the young Nigerians went through to put me there, I
Yeah.
would have. I even expected that P2B would, in all with boldness, ask all these lawmakers to say no to
To
the
certain things.
millions that we are giving to them as
Yeah.
a sign of solidarity, because this is what I know the Norwegian Labour Party, where I belong to, and
Yeah.
where I played politics, would have done. We would have said no to these SUVs, said no to
True.
all old money, and even
True.
if I have taken the money, I would have made it transparently that all obedient projects will be supported with it. So,
Yeah.
with that context now, do you
Ah.
think the new structure of this new obedient now, which is
Mm.
interim, that has been fostered on us,
Yeah.
do you think it will still hold that momentum that gave P2P that victory come 2027? Though he has not said he will contest, but
Yeah.
all indication of what he's saying shows that he's still active. I'm
Well,
sorry for
that,
the
that,
long.
nah, it's all right. I like that because it gives me a lot to it shows that it gives me a lot to really think about, on the fly. Before I get to the question about the new obedience structure, which is very key and quite exciting, let me start from one word you said, capture, state capture. What has happened is true. The state has been captured. That's what we're experiencing because we practice a level of representative democracy where citizens elect people who they want, the representatives they want to make decisions on their behalf. And this is the most common form of democracy today. But as you can see, the people representing us, it's not really the representative from the people. It was captured, by IREV, by from the polling unit. It was captured. So you already have state capture in the form or disguised as democracy. So the only opposing force that can really call out that state capture would be obviously the opposition parties like the PDPs and the Labour Party and a few other parties around. They would have been the obvious ones to call out these ills, but for some strange reason they seem to slack in their call outs. So what you're now left with is a faction of the citizens that have morphed into something unique, which is the obedient movement. Now, the thing is, the movement for the last year has been going through different tweaks, different conversations around leadership, different conversations around structure. And from my point of view, that conversation needed to take its time so that when you're going to get it right, you're going to get it right. There's no point rushing into something that's going to last forever. You take your time, you morph it, you build it, you really, really think about a process that would give you that form of structure, that form of leadership. What has happened with this new development, I wouldn't say I'm totally excited about it, but the key word there is that it's an interim thing. So at least we are trying something. At least we're going to try and see what ideas or what techniques or how the individual can hit the ground running and how we can discuss with obedience to share their views. What I don't totally agree with is the movement being used as a semblance of a political tool, which is not. It's more of a political custodian morphed with a civil rights engagement. So that the group, as I see it, if you're into politics and you're a member of the group, then you are active. But if you're not into politics, like many people are, then you're active from a civil point of view. So you have to weigh all that before you appoint someone who would actually drive those ideologies and satisfy the needs of its core members at large. So what does that mean now from the interim point of view? Might make sense to some people. But
So
personally,
what you're saying in essence is that the new interim leader of the obedient movement, because of his role he has played in active Labour Party
yeah,
as the spokesperson for Obi,
yeah.
that it might it might be of conflict in being also the leader of obedient movement,
Well,
or
definitely, because
are you saying that the obedient movement should be totally discharged? Because for some of us, I
no,
think
no, no,
I
no,
think
no,
this
no. That,
I think this discussion should be seen as a part of what he also called for, which is that we should discuss which structure is best for it. You know,
yes,
I
yes,
because for me, I expect that the obedient movement has to be something that is democratic,
yes.
something that the leadership will also be shown as something coming from the obedience themselves, especially that are not so close to
Yeah.
the party politics.
But you see,
Is
that's
that
the problem. That's the thing.
that the role he has played in party politics will make
Mm,
maybe the obedient movement become a party political arm of the Labour Party? Is it?
exactly. That's where we have to be very careful because you and I know that majority of the people who won the elections for Peter Obi were not Labour Party card carriers. We all know that. We know people who voted for Peter Obi from PDP, from even from APC. Card carrying members of APC, they all voted for Peter Obi because they were getting towards
Abgasu, don't forget that.
exactly. Afghan and all these other parties. It's there because the numbers don't lie. If the numbers don't lie, you have to look at the general consensus that make that number us is that people want good governance. But what is good governance? So if you're going to drive leadership from a movement point of view, you have to look at what brought those people together in the first place and try to enhance that, right?
Yeah,
From
because what you're doing is that if you lock it up where where some APC, PDP, or non-party people who are not Labour Party people, but who sees P2B as a credible candidate, to make it easier for them also to support it. Is that what we're trying to
Well,
say?
of course, you have to keep continuity because what brought the people together before was a clear ideology, a clear vision, which is the promise of a new Nigeria, not promise of people going to recruitment. It wasn't promise of
Not 200 people, not to recruit 200 people.
yeah, or people
The
to go
polling
to the
unit,
ballot boxes and secure your vote.
and
No,
form
that's
polling unit soldiers.
no, exactly. That's not the promise of the movement. The promise of the movement is we have one common ideology, we have one common vision, which is we all want a better Nigeria. So that has to be the driving force of anybody who's going to come and act either as an interim or would be leader of the movement. First, you have to get to the mindset of the people so that they all have the shared vision of a better Nigeria. So when we say new Nigeria is possible, if you start from there, ask yourself, why is it possible? Because you have people with the right mindset. But if we don't have those people now, we have to build those people. We have to morph those people. And those are the people we saw who voted for Peter Obi because, they are the ones ready to be built. So if you ignore them and just focus from a partisan point of view, like it's almost happening now, it becomes a problem. And I tell you why it's a problem, because personally, I received nothing less than 10 phone calls the day the announcement was made. People saying, what's going on? Someone categorically said to me, today I removed my hand from the movement because they didn't understand what was going on. They didn't understand the kind of the process basically that brought about the interim system. The only justification there was it's interim. So if something is interim, so it's a start of something. So I can live with that, but with one eye. You use one eye and be watching what's going on. So that is what it is, and that's where we are from a movement point of view. I think we should continue this kind of conversations as frequent as possible because a lot of people will have so many things to balance their minds on and so many uncertainties. So we can have a representation of facts for them to consume. you
Yeah,
know?
I hope so, and I hope that that it will not be misinterpreted, because the one of my observation in the obedient movement is that
Mm,
the the all the long period of betrayals by
right.
different institutions of government in Nigeria has made the young people, especially that constitute the majority of obedience,
Hmm.
very, very skeptical to any type of criticism or
Yeah.
advices that comes to them, which I understand. I understand.
Mm,
I want them to keep on the militancy. I want them to keep on the fire burning. But it is also important that we understand that politics is something where we have to listen to each other,
yes.
and that some of us also have organizational experience, and we look at things from different part of the world. We know what are the good process for a democratic institution and a democratic movement. So I think we should continue the discussion, because I feel also that as quickly as possible, I expect that the leadership of the new obedient movement, if I should call it like that, must come out with a plan of action. They have called for advices, and I'm sure people like you and me, at least from our own organization, we have sent in our own concept plan that we feel will lead to making the obedient movement very inclusive,
Yeah.
uh, making it a broad-based movement that includes all genders, all religious groups, ethnic groups, social groups, and make sure that it is organization that will be where we will go towards, whether we call it a national convention or a
Yeah.
national congress or a national
Mm,
summit,
yeah.
where we hope that everybody will be given a chance, if you say you are an obedient, to register as a delegate or come out with a criteria for that,
Yeah.
so that we can come together. It is not something that we'll just have a space and P2B will just come out and tell us that no, one of his former spokesman now is going to rule all over us. I hope it's not going to be like that, because if it's like that, then you will then, of course, feel that then we start to have key obedience and obedience of padlocks and obedience when no we just carry leg they work out. But I want a
Mm,
movement where all these obedience will be represented and have a voice, so that we can all come together, use good time because we
yeah.
have time, use time to build a structure that will be democratic, that will
Yeah.
be people oriented, that will also shine with the values we see in Chipitobi's candidacy.
Yeah.
I hope this is what we are saying. But if you feel I'm not in line, because I think we're having this discussion because of feedbacks and what the opinions we've seen on
Yes.
social media,
Yes.
and it
Yep.
will be wrong for us who are, if I will call myself an elder obedient, I
Mm.
can speak for myself, not to say, because in
Mm.
Igbo proverb we say that when the elder sees and does not speak out, it's not good.
It's not good. Yeah. I
So
mean, you've
I think
spoken.
we will keep speaking to that. And I
Yes.
think that obedience will also know that we will also criticize the obedient movement. We will also criticize P2B if we see that it's not carrying out the way we want it. What we want, but we trust P2B, because P2B say, criticize me. I want to learn. I don't know everything. So I think that is the way we should look at it. If you see on the screen going now, so that we use the last 5 minutes to touch on issue that we know that is pressing in Nigeria today, which is the issue of violent extremism. But you can as well comment on what I have said about.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I would just. It's not really to comment on it. It's just to enhance it a bit before we go
okay.
into the last 5 minutes of it. That's fine. We have to be very conscious and aware that members of the movement are spread across different facets in the country, not just the political arm of thinking. There are members of the movement who are in schools, who are lecturers, who are university people, who are students, who are religious people, who are civil servants, who are the common man. So you have to create a structure that would reach those people to enhance what they do as obedience and bring forth that ideology through them. You see, that's very important. So if we focus only on the political arm of the movement, and you are selling it short on so many levels, because the day would come and people would be like, well, I'm a pastor. No one came to reach out to me to say how I can promote the ideology of the obedient movement in my church. Stuff like that. And that can apply to other walks of life within the country. So I just wanted to caveat that because that is in line with what you were saying. We have to reach out to more and enhance what they do with the ideology of the movement, not necessarily the political ambitions of it, if there's such a thing, actually.
That we should carry everybody along.
Technically, yes.
Yeah, we should. We should.
Mm,
The issue of violent extremism today, which we are seeing, I'm sure as Nigerians, we feel very, very sad every day we read of the issues of violent extremism.
yeah.
It's one of the issues that also it's nice you mentioned Comrade Dele Farotimi's last Sunday's lecture because in
Let's,
a way
let's
he
talk about
touched
that.
on it.
Mm,
He said the reasons behind the
yep,
insecurity we are seeing in the southwest, in the
exactly.
south, in the
Hmm.
southeast, and in this and in the north in general.
Especially
Most
in the
of,
north.
especially in
Especially
the
in the
north,
north.
because
Mm,
in the north, that one is taking more
yes.
lives than we are
Yes.
seeing, and the root causes are is very complex and is very diverse. Especially, he talked about the north and named the illegal mining,
It's very important.
the fight for gemstones and
Yes.
what he's saying. I think this is an issue we cannot discuss today,
No
but
problem.
it's something we can also make sure to tell our northern brothers that we we send our condolences to all the families that have lost life, and
Yeah.
that we are appealing to the governors of the north and to the president. Maybe it is high time that Nigeria calls for a national summit against all forms of radical extremism, that we bring all stakeholders to the table to see
Mm,
how we can start to tackle the issue of hate. The issue of hate now have also blown up. Today, things that you never see before in Nigeria, where the
yeah.
Yoruba man is abusing the Igbo man and the Igbo man is abusing the Yoruba man in an open space. People today open Twitter spaces, use over 12 hours to talk and demonize each other. And
Mm,
these are often educated people. They are not illiterates because anybody who has money to buy data to come to Twitter and have a phone that can be on Twitter, we expect that you have a little bit knowledge to read news. And we all know when if this kind of issue is unchecked, Brother Solomon, you know that we've seen what has happened in South Sudan, in Rwanda, and we will also know what can the citizens do to check this level of violent
yeah.
extremism, this hate, this intolerance that is happening. Is it the responsibility of government? And when government fails, what will the people do?
Exactly. Well, to wrap it up, the government is already failing. That one is obvious. So the question now is what can we do to rescue the situation? Because what is clear and obvious, like we stated before, is state capture. Once you have state capture, you have disobedience from the citizens. And once you have civil disobedience, it's only going to escalate, and it will escalate into protest. It will morph into mini protest, which will lead into huge protest. Then at some point, it's a full-blown revolution. Unless you're not watching, unless you're not following the data, unless you are completely ignorant about what is going on in Nigeria, and then you will think everything is okay. And it seems that the leadership we have in Nigeria at this point in time, they are they have those attributes of being ignorant and not watching. So the question remains, what can we do? And I think this is part of the conversation, and hopefully going forward, what we can do is what we will be talking about from a civic point of view, from a movement point of view, from an individual point of view, and collectively from a citizen's point of view. So these are nuggets or tenets of those things we can do. And going forward, we would address those as key items. What can we do to eradicate or at least reduce the radical violent extremism in Nigeria? What can we do to engage government more? What can we do to solidify ourselves as citizens and seek and ask for our rights? And especially what we can do to build the country. That's where we are. So I hope that that helps in summarizing our conversation today.
Thank you very much, Mr. Soul. I
Mm.
know that you also run a lot of leadership program. You have been very, very consistent with different over 60 Twitter spaces that has done a lot to educate Nigerians, bring them together.
Over
And
200, 200.
over 200.
Mhm.
So I think is you sometime also you're thinking that it's time to also stepping into the arena and be more on the ground. So maybe some of our viewers, where this is our first episode, and we apologize for any technical issues we're having.
Yeah.
But this podcast will get better in all level, both the topics, both the technical side. So if you're gonna do us a favor, you should support what we're doing by also subscribing to the channel
Yeah.
and also leaving us a comment. But why not use 2 minutes or 3 minutes and give an introduction to the viewers of who you are, what you've been
Mm.
doing, and why are you doing this, and where
Okay.
where do you see it going forward, so
Thank
that
you.
we use it
All
to
right.
round. Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much.
Thank you again. Introducing myself as your co-host or guest going forward in this podcast series. So my name is Sol Aleto. I am the director of the Nigerian Network, a platform developed specifically for Nigerian engagement. And the social arm of that platform is you can be found on Twitter at broadcast TNN broadcast. We do a lot of podcasts and we do a lot of things just to ensure that we keep the conversation going. And the whole idea is to promote the idea of a new Nigeria, enhance the idea of a new Nigeria, and create that vision of a better Nigeria because we are involved in this process altogether. So part of the vision for the organization and its purpose is this kind of stuff. We network with other people who have these kind of things going, other podcasts, other social arms of organizations, charities. We work with them to ensure that we have that collective voice to project the betterness and the idea of a new Nigeria. So that's who I am, and I'm really glad to be here. And I'm looking forward to more and more going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, brother, and thank you for this conversation today.
No
uh,
problem.
I think we should follow it up. So to
Okay.
all obedience, we hail you. For those who are not obedient, you're welcome. We love
Yes.
you.
Thank you.
And we want you to know that this discussion is not going to be it's not basically an obedient forum. It is a forum for the Nigerian democracy development. It is a
Mm.
place where we want to welcome everybody, whether you are an obedient, you are not an obedient, but so far as you want to contribute to the discussion of Nigerian democratic development,
Yeah.
because today we know that there are a lot of people who want different kind of things to happen in Nigeria. Some of them there are different kind of agitations which we respect, but we also believe that the only way to bring Nigeria and build a United Nation and secure it, and maybe also take it from consumption that is destroying us to production.
Production.
So if
Okay.
we should grow from P2P, the man we supported is
Yeah.
through democracy. We
It
don't
is.
have an alternative. And the one of
Mm.
the best way, or the only way, to fight against hatred, bigotry, and ignorance is through knowledge,
Yeah.
is through information. So we will be streaming this podcast in all platforms. It will be aired on Facebook. It will be aired, edited for Instagram. We will also have it on YouTube and on Twitter. So we will also combine it with a Twitter space that will also reflect the diverse interests and diverse opinions of all Nigerians who want a democracy that works for all, that new Nigeria that is possible. We cannot say that it is only one group that has ownership to it, or we are not also saying that we have all the answers. So as time goes on, we will also invite different kind of guests to talk with them. I think this is the plan we have going forward. So I will thank Mr. Soul for taking time.
Yeah, thank you. It's my pleasure.
Who will watch it to share it, give it a like, so that people know that the democratic movement has different faces. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you for your time.